Okay, now you're doing operations with scientific notations, numbers in scientific notation. 6 times 10 to the 4th times 4.8 times 10 to the 2nd. It's all times, so here's what you do. You put the 6 with the 4.8, okay? You can multiply this in any order, so multiply it in this order. You're going to take 6 times 4.8, and then we're going to take the 10 to the 4th times the 10 to the 2nd. Okay, so I take 6 times 4.8, easy enough, to 28.8. Now to multiply these, don't just punch that into a calculator. You write down 10 one time and you add 4 plus 2. 4 plus 2 is 6. Now you got to take this number and mark the first digit that's not a 0, it's 2. Well, you got to move the decimal so it's between the 2 and the 8. So you moved it left 1. So you moved it left, so that's a positive 1. Now, if you moved it positive 1 here, you got to come over here and add 1. So that's going to equal 7, okay? So you have 2.88 times base 10 to the 7th power, okay? So remember, whatever happens with your decimal, you go adjust your exponent by what, if it's a negative 1, you minus 1, okay? But if it's a positive, you're going to add. Okay, next one, 0.6, 0.2. I wrote that like an idiot. And then base 10 to the negative 3rd times base 10 to the negative 5th. So 0.6 times 0.2 is 0.12. And then on 10, we add negative 3 plus negative 5. That's negative 8. Okay. Now you got to make sure your decimal's in the right place. This is your first non-zero. You got to move it once to the right. Moving it to the right represents a power of negative 1. So we have to come over here and minus 1 from the negative 8. Minus because it's negative. Up here I went plus because it was plus 1. So 1.2 times 10, and then negative 8 minus 1 is negative 9. So 10 to the negative 9th power. That's all there is to it. Okay, 0.5 times 6, and then base 10 to the 4th times base 10 to the negative 14th. So that's going to be 3, so we'll put a 0.0 after it. And then I go 4 plus negative 14, and that's negative 10. Now it seems to me this is your first non-zero and the decimal's already between the 3 and the 0, so I don't need to move it. I have my answer, 3.0 times 10 to the negative 10th power. Okay, and then here's 0.6 times 0.3, then 10 to the negative 8th times 10 to the negative 3rd. So that's going to be 0.18. Then on 10, we add negative 8 plus negative 3. That's negative 11. Now, check your first non-zero number starting on the left. It's 1, so it's got to be between the 1 and the 8. So you move it once to the right, which represents a negative first power. So I got a minus 1 from there, and that equals a negative 12th power. So we have 1.8 times base 10 to the negative 12th power. Okay, so that's multiplication. Now, on the second part of this, you're going to divide. Okay, now you're going to do the same thing. It's the same idea, but now you're going to put your 2.6 divided by your 1.3. You're going to break up the division. And then you're going to do your 10 to the 14th divided by your 10 to the 4th. So I divide these and it's 2, so 2.0. And remember how to divide with exponents. You cancel. We're always going to be canceling. With scientific notation, we always cancel the one on the bottom, even if it's bigger or smaller. I mean, it's smaller here, but you're always going to cancel the bottom, and that makes 10. 10 to the 10th. Okay? Now, decimal's already in the right place. There's my first digit that's not a 0, and the decimal's already there, so I do not need to move it. So I have my answer. 2.10 times base 10 to the 10th. Okay, 4.5 divided by 9, and then 10 to the negative 7th divided by 10 to the negative 3rd. So I divide 4.5 by 9, I get 0.5. Now I know that one's smaller, but in scientific notation you cancel the one on the bottom, okay? So don't minus 3, you're minusing negative 3, okay? Now, a negative 7 minus a negative 3 is like a plus 3. So that's negative 4, okay? Now, so we got 10 to the negative 4th. Now, this is your first non-zero digit, okay? Right there. So you need to move the decimal. You got to put a 0 after it. Move the decimal once to the right, which means negative 1. So I minus 1, and that's negative 5. So it's 5.0 now, times base 10 to the negative 5th power. Okay, next one. 4.2 divided by 2.1. Then 10 to the 8th divided by 10 to the 11th. 4.2 divided by 2.1 is 2. Put a 0.0 there. Now, you always cancel the one on the bottom, okay, in scientific notation. 8 minus 11 is negative 3. So we have 10 to the negative 3rd. And we're done because the decimal's already, this is my non-zero digit, decimal's already between that number and what's after it, so I have my answer, 2.0 times 10 to the negative 3rd power. Okay. Then break it up, so take 5.1 divided by 1.7, then take 10 to the negative 2nd divided by 10 to the negative 5th. That's 3 whole, so you put 3.0. And then always cancel your bottom. Don't minus 5, it's minus negative 5. So I take negative 2 minus negative 5, and that's 3, okay? So this ends up being 3, so 10 to the 3rd, and I don't need to move the decimal because here is my first non-zero digit, and the decimal's already between that and the digit after it. So it's 3.0 times 10 to the 3rd power.